Okay, well, welcome to our VCE, which is our virtual career exploration program. I'm Gabriel, and this is our other host.
I'm Davion. The, I am a business owner and author, and you cousin president of Light.
And we really pleased to introduce our guest, Symone Barnes. She's a very accomplished published author, and we'd love to if you would introduce yourself.
Hi guys, my name is Symone Barnes. I am 21 years old and I'm in college, as well as I am a published author. A year ago, I published my poetry book. It's called Crown Me, and it's about empowering yourself. It's about embodying confidence, self-respect, and just knowing that you are rare and unique and crowning yourself for who you are. Yeah.
Thank you. Could you share a little bit about your background and what it was like growing up?
Yeah, so I I I graduated from West Aurora High School. So like I've lived in the Naperville, Chicagoland area, graduated from West Aurora High School, and I feel like all throughout my education, I've always known that I wanted to be a writer. So at literally kindergarten, when we would have those projects, I knew that I was gonna either be a journalist or the next Alicia Keys. That's exactly what I wrote on my piece of paper for that project. And as I look back on it, my little time capsule that I actually just opened the other day, one of my things was, I'm gonna write my own book. And so I've known that that was something that I've always wanted to do. So I feel like at a young age, something that inspired me to be like a writer is that I've always been such a person who's had a strong intellect and who's always been very intuitive with my emotions, um, physically, vocally, as well as like intuitively. So that's actually what's made me so like geared towards writing. Um, so when I went to high school, I knew that I would just be starting to look for my search to go to schools that kind of benefited my degree in journalism. And so fast forward to like the pandemic, when it was like everyone had to be quarantined. That was like, I want to say for some, it was like the hardest experience. But for me, it gave me so much time to just focus on what I actually wanted to do without making excuses for not having the time to do it. And one of the things I wanted to do was publish my book. So that gave me so much time to look at the different platforms that I could publish it on, who to reach out to, because I already had the content. I've been writing poetry since I was in like first grade. So I just kind of like took a collection of my poems, revised those, and created like Crown Me. And like all of my poetry, even though they're all so different, the initial like theme and purpose all had one message, and that was to crown yourself to feel confident through whatever experience or situation like you have undergone in your life. So that's kind of like my journey. I feel like writing has always been like for me, like God has literally anointed me with knowing that I'm meant to be a writer. I think the different thing was is how I wanted to navigate with using that skill of mine. So I wanted to be a journalist. I'm getting my degree in journalism because I want to be a columnist, as well as like write my own books. And I actually might want to get a degree a minor in publishing, just because the idea of like after my writing career, the idea of just reading books and deciding which ones are put on the market is actually really soothing to think about as like an ending of your career kind of thing. But for right now, like I enjoy like going around doing book signings, especially like going on indie book tours, which I started doing a lot of this summer, like all over in different states, which is so cool. It's so exotic. It's just such a different experience. You meet so many people and you get the opportunity to communicate with like different walks of life, and then you get time to like think of like new opportunities to have with different people and different organizations. So it's actually really cool. So it's been like a cool journey. Long
Yeah.
but cool so far.
Yeah, it sounds like it's been a really neat journey because I think
Yeah.
like always knowing like what you wanted to do, I think is really cool. Could you share a little bit more about like a point where you just maybe one of the points where you just like this is what I want, or was it just a process?
I feel like I've just always been so strong-minded, and like when I've always spoke something, I've always stuck to that. Like it's very rare that I have moments of being indecisive. Like any area of my life, I'm just not indecisive. I know what I want when I want it, and I'm like, I'm gonna get it. It might not be the fastest as I want, but I know eventually it's gonna happen. And that's what happened for writing. I feel like literally at a young age in kindergarten, I was like, I'm gonna be a writer and I'm gonna write my own book. I don't know when that's going to be, but I know that I'm going to get to it. But I think that's helped me mentally and physically start aligning myself in different outside activities, different things in school that I was presented, to start allowing myself to have speaking roles, because I knew that I wanted to be a speaker when I go on book readings or book tours, or I start taking additional writing classes to help me just work my creative skills a little bit more. And I think all of those things kind of like came into play because I knew what I wanted. So that just makes sure like whatever you want to do, just make sure that you start aligning yourself up with involving in things, surrounding yourself with people that can help you get to that eventually, just because it does help you stay on track, and it does make you realize how much you want it. And it is kind of there as like a motivational thing to say, like, reminder, like, hey, like this is something you want to do, so the work is worth putting in.
Yeah, that's I think it's always important when we have that end goal and
Yeah.
we see kind of the process and the roadmap for that. It's I know there's always people like along the way who really help us out when we are on that journey. Is there anyone like special in your life who's really helped mentor you and helped you with that journey?
Yeah, so I'm very like religious, so first come, first serve. It's always going to be God for me. But other than that, I feel like it's definitely been my mom and my nana and my great grandmother before she passed away. Like I've only been around like strong women. That's my foundation, and I feel like they have helped me blossom so much, and they've always like supported me. Like my mom, she's like my biggest cheerleader. Like if I go to her and say I want to be superwoman, she's going to be like, I need to find you a cape. Like that's how she never looks at me and say you cannot do something. If I tell her I want to do anything, she's going to make sure I do it. And so I've just been so blessed with a strong foundation, with a strong like unit as far as like those three people in my life to support me and be behind me. And that's another thing. It's so important to know the resources that you have in your life, even people who feel like they don't have resources. Sometimes your family's not your resource. Sometimes it's your friend. Sometimes it's like a trusted adult in the local groups that you guys participate in, or sometimes it's a teacher, sometimes it's some type of mentor, until you can realize that initially you are your own resource. I feel like that's something that I've learned so much, is that at the end of the day, sometimes you feel like you have no one around you, but you're you for a reason. And that's because like you're your resource, like you're so much talented. Like everybody is like individually so creative, and we all have like something to give to this world. So it's just so important for you to figure out what you have to give.
That's amazing. I think someone said it so well that the best people out there are the ones that are the creators, and they create stuff, the architect of the world. And I that seems like what you're doing. You're creating so much in the community, and again with all your poetry. I mean, I've personally been able to see it, read it, and it's been amazing to see how many people just how it inspires people, and that opportunity to change the community.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel like that's like the initial reward. Like me wanting to write when I was like during quarantine, I was trying to think like, okay, what do I actually want to do? And I feel like during quarantine, like although I was like deciding to like pursue a dream that I've always had, I still was in a process where I was soul searching. So, in the midst of me like soul searching, reaching my self efficiency and making sure that I'm reaching my highest self, I was like, well, I want to make other people feel like this. And I feel like my main thing that I always believe, like one of my mantras is like, I empower myself to empower other people. And I feel like that's just what the world is lacking. I feel like sometimes we could be so selfish, so self like absorbed or so too self-efficient. And we forget that sometimes we're meant to like help other people and pass other things along once we figured that out for ourselves.
Mhm.
So in that time when I was empowering myself and I was crowning myself mentally, physically, emotionally, all that stuff, I wanted to make sure that anybody else could have this same feeling, like anybody else could know that they're just as important, just as royal, just as powerful. And that's like why I'm so passionate about Crown Me. And I'm taking my time with advertising this project because I've just put so much thought into how I want to empower my community and like young adults, starting with young adults, of course, and then like reaching older adults because it's never too late to crown yourself. Even older adults have like self-esteem and just so much imbalance in their life. So I think everybody deserves to be crowned, no matter what age, no matter what gender, no matter what race, ethnicity, just everyone deserves to be crowned.
Absolutely.
Mhm. Completely agree.
Yeah,
Oh, oh, sorry.
no, you're good.
Was there any troubles for you doing publishing your book? Because I know as an author myself, it's not easy doing that.
Yes, you're so right. It is not easy to like publish, but and it's not easy because there's so many platforms. But I think like at first, I went to these companies like that I was referred to by like mutual friends and stuff like that. But as I was speaking to those agents, they didn't envision my vision the way I did. And if you don't sound as impassionate about what I'm trying to, you know, spread, I'm like it just didn't feel right. So intuitively I was like, okay, this company's not for me, this publishing company's not for me. And then there's just so much that goes into that when you learn as far as like the financial things and like working out the numbers and what you're able to do and what you're not able to do. And then I also like follow so many of my other I follow so many different like poets and stuff like that and look at their journeys too, which is like a major help because like everyone is like doing different things, and sometimes you can take ideas from other people and just take advice, and it's actually turned out really helpful. So this one artist that I follow, she was like the first platform that she used was Ingram Sparks. Are you guys aware with Ingram Sparks?
Yeah, I
That's
am.
actually, yeah, I was gonna say if like you looked into like publishing your book, that's a really good one. But that's like underneath self-publishing, which is as good too. I feel like my first book I got published, but my new edition I chose to self-publish with Ingram Sparks, just because with Ingram Sparks, you can still just distribute your stuff into other places. But I think you just have to pick and choose your battles because like why I turned down Barnes and Noble's partnering with Barnes and Noble's because like I couldn't keep all my royalties. And that was something that I had to really look into myself and my agent included, because like that was my goal, to walk into Barnes and Nobles and see my work like there on the stand. But then after I realized what I'd be making, how much I'd be giving, and different events, and how much percentage they'd be taking from different events, I
Mhm.
was like, no, this
Yeah, I
does
know. 'Cause
not
Barnes and Noble
no,
take
it
a big
wouldn't.
cut. They take a big
Right.
cut.
Yeah, so I'm just kind of like, yeah, that's a no. But it just mentally it was kind of like, man, but like logically, financially, I'm like, no. So, and I feel like now I think it's a blessing that it's 2022 and there's so many different platforms, there's so many different ways that you can push yourself, push your book. It just takes work, honestly, work and time and like motivation. So like I didn't get too much discouraged, even though I was like, man, but it wasn't kind of like I missed out or kind of thing like that. It was like, well, Assalamu alaikum, Barnes and Noble, because like that just didn't
Mhm.
go with what I was like planned. But there's so many different other like platforms that you can get into with self-publishing. I think like the biggest thing is that it's just so overwhelming how much it is, how
Mhm.
many there are. So that's the only challenge. That was a good question.
So with all the like you said, you mentioned it was kind of challenging picking and choosing which publisher to go with. Was there a like a step or person through the process that helped you make that decision, or
That's it was mostly between like myself and my agent and my mom. So I don't normally and my like my nana, like I normally like get their opinion. And like if I don't like feel it myself, I'm just like they're like my voices of reasoning. Um and like I think like my agent, like as far as like legal things and financial things, I'm like I always like look to him. But like my mom initially, she knows me and she knows my vision, she knows my dream, she knows my plan. So I really listen to her. Like she's just like that last bit of confirmation that I need, like, okay, this is right. Or like, no, this is wrong. So those are the people.
uh, so kind of going a little more into like any difficulties you had with getting the book published? Were there like any people who like told you that it was not going to happen, like they're like nope?
I feel like it just I feel like, you know what, to be honest, it was kind of like people were like, once they heard like my title, why my theme was the way it was, why I chose, they were actually like, this is great, this is awesome. But they weren't hearing who I wanted to push it out to. And that was the major thing that was kind of like a discouragement, because it's like, okay, you can't just, and I get like it's their job, but then at the same time, it's their job to still kind of like listen to the actual artist or the author. And I feel like that's what was so hard about these bigger publishing companies, is they're just thinking about how every other book sells. But I need you to be thinking about how my book is going to sell. Forget about every other book, because it's not the same. That's the point of having different artists, different platforms, different genres. And I think that that was my major thing to why I was like, okay, I'm going to look into self-publishing too, because like I still have what I want to do in my head. And I feel like that process is like so easy. I think again, it's just like you have to be prepared, like to put in time and work, because it does fall back on you to know how to advertise, market your book, create those prices, make sure you have like your documents, make sure you get all your copyrights and all this stuff. Like if you're serious about it, that's all that comes with
Mhm.
it. Because like anybody could just post anything or get anything published, to be honest. But it's how, like, it's the little bitty extra things that make you more official, that you put your time into doing. So that's kind of like what was like the one thing that's been such like a long process and stuff like that. But I think there wasn't anybody that told me I couldn't do it or said like a no as far as like becoming an author and hearing my vision. Now for journalism on that side for my major, there's plenty of people that told me like literally no. Like I had an internship and I was interning and I got to sit on the Jason Van Dyke and the Latron McDonald trial. And I met so many different interns, so many different independent authors from the Chicagoland news area, the New York news area. They were all out there that day. And I remember the guy that the journalist that I was underneath, as well as the state's attorney who was prosecuting that case, they introduced me to every one of them. And they were like, this is what she wants to major in. And it was so awesome. But they were like, really? And they were like, good luck with that. And I understood what they meant, but at the same time, it was kind of like this, where we're headed in this world, it's literally like anything is possible. So I'm just kind of like, it went through one ear and out the other, to be honest. Because I was like, okay, well, they grew up in a different genre. It's a different era. It's a different mindset. So I have to keep in mind, like, I have to take heed of what they're saying. But at the end of the day, it's not going to resonate with me too much because I know what it is when it comes to where we are now in life. And that's literally like you can do anything, like anything is possible. Anything is made a job. You just have to put time and work into it.
Mhm.
That's absolutely true. I think something more of us are discovering that you can absolutely do anything and everything. I mean, it's so long as you put
Right.
your mind to it and you put the effort into that, and there's so much you can accomplish.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So as far as touring and sharing your book with people, what's that been like for you? Has it been easy or
I think it's been like, if I could use one word, it's been like rewarding just because like it feels so good like when people are reading your work and like they mumble like underneath their breath, oh my God, you get me. Or like, are you living my life? Or like they just say comment or like I can relate them or like they're like, yes, this is so me. Like just stuff like that, the little lingo that people are using now. And it's like, okay, like I'm not alone in like what I'm writing, or I'm not weird for writing these feelings. Like other people legit are like in the same like experiences like I'm going through. And I think like that's the most rewarding thing is like when so many people are like, I love your stuff, like it relates so much to me and it helps me so much. Like I get like DMs and like I get like emails to my Crown Me account and they're like, this is awesome. And it's always so cool when it's a diverse group. So it's like men and women, girls and boys, and it's like different nationalities, different ages. And it's just really cool to see like how many people you're like empowering and like crowning at the end of the day. I think that's like the most thing that I love about like doing what I'm doing. Like that's what gives me like just that last ounce when I'm like, okay, I need to put this stuff on hold because it's just too much. And then I get something like as small as like a new review or like somebody that's posted my book on their social media and we're like, you have no idea. And I'm just kind of like, okay, I need to keep pushing and keep going through with Crown Me.
that's amazing. I think it's truly the best thing is inspiring people and kind of giving back. So that's amazing that you get to do that, and you find fulfillment in being able to share your experiences with people, because I feel like we always underestimate how our experiences are actually quite common with what other people feel and how other people are feeling, and even just voicing that makes people feel heard. So I think it's
Yeah.
amazing that you're doing that and sharing that with the world.
Thank you. Yeah, you're so right about that. Like, it took me like really like Well, it's not like I didn't know, but it was kind of just like I was still oblivious to the fact that literally everybody experiences the same thing. It's just how we digest those experiences and what time they approach us in our life. And I
Mhm.
think like knowing that, it made it so much more easier to like just write on things. And I think like so many people, like one of the first questions that they asked me, and my mom included, because like she read some of my poetry and she's like, what are these poems about? Like, are they stuff that you experience? Are they stuff that you feel? And I get those questions all the time because like people want to know. Um, that, and I feel like I always say like it's honestly like a mixture of like some it is about me, some it is about my experiences, or some it's just about what I see other people experience because I'm so observant. I just take all of those and I just like create different experiences and like stories and different like poems of like so much feel to them, but I make sure that at the end you feel some type of like empowerment and purpose behind reading something.
That's amazing. It's
Yeah.
always important to share that.
Yeah, it is.
Um, so for everyone who's interested in getting into becoming an author or publishing a book, what would your advice be to them?
Um, my advice would be like make sure you just narrow things down because it makes the process easier. Make sure you think
Mhm.
about the title, your topic, what crowd you want to sell it to. Then you have to get into doing your research as far as do I want it to be published by somebody else? Do I want to self-publish it? How much do you want it to be? And then you have to go on. Now, am I just writing a book or do I expect myself to go on and schedule like different events and venues and book signings like that? And then that's when you just narrow things down and start doing them, putting things into like a list so you can chronologically have those where it's just like, okay, got that, check. It
Mhm.
doesn't, it takes off the load and that stress because it's like if you just try to do everything at once, it's literally gonna make it seem like it's impossible to do it when it's literally not. It's like I feel like it's just so many people are just kind of like they just need to narrow it down a little bit and just kind of like be prepared. Like it may take some time to figure that all out, but in the end, it's so worth it because it's something that you want to do and it's something that you want to be successful. And I feel like that's like the most efficient way for you to be successful in that journey because sometimes there are people that are just one hit wonders, they write something and it just doesn't stick. But that's because like it doesn't happen overnight. You have to take that time, take that have that motivation to put work into what you believe in. And that's sometimes figuring out how you want to do that the way you want to do that.
Completely agree because it can drive you crazy if you try to do everything at once.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, like you'll be thinking about, okay, what is the title name? Now I got to be thinking about my works, and then you have to think about like getting someone to proofread your stuff, hiring an
Mhm.
editor if you need one, if you don't want to do it yourself. 'Cause I've seen so many people that have tried to do it themselves, but the hardest part about trying to edit your own work is you know what it's supposed to say and how it's supposed to look. So you could
Mhm.
psych yourself into thinking that it really does look like that, but then two other people read it and they're like, up, mistake here, mistake here. And so it's like you have to just go through like all those like
Yeah.
different things. It's so tedious, but it helps when you narrow those things down like, okay, these are done. I can move on to the next thing. I feel like that's just the best thing that I recommend because I'm such a like organized person. Like organization brings so much like tranquility to my life. Like it just helps me like um be better prepared and to work efficiently and as best as I can is being like organized and having things of like chronological step or order.
Mhm.
Thanks so much for sharing that. I think it's truly great when we get to hear from authors, especially you and the work you're doing. Where can people, for more information about you, where can people go to for that?
Yeah, so like I'm always like active on my Instagram, or I have my website. It's called like officialcrownme.com. That's also like on my Instagram, or like on my flyers or like business cards and stuff like that. I haven't gotten like used to being active on like Twitter and like Facebook and stuff like that. I haven't like did that stuff, but I think it's just easier for me to do that. Or I'm actually very active on email too. Like my email is officialcrownme@yahoo.com. I'm always working on there too. And then I feel like my website, like having my person like update all my events, like when I have them in place, like that's like the most way. And then like Instagram too is like the most social media platform that I'm like comfortable with right now. Or it's just easy for me to like tote around and like tap in to see like what I need to do, or like broadcast like my different events and things like that.
Great. Well, thanks so much. And stay tuned for more wonderful interviews with Debian and myself.